Welcome back to Coal and Shield Ironworks. This is part 2 to my video where I took you through my very first commission. So today I'm going to be forging the door latch. Let me show you. So here's my little plan that I've drawn out. So here we're going to have a little plate that we bolt down to the top of the staircase, and we're going to have a shaft, a shank, and then we're going to have a rivet going through connecting onto the main swivel part of the door latch. And you can't really see it there because I cut out a piece of steel, but that's a hook, and that is going to hook onto this little receiver that's going to be on the door. I also want to show you this piece of steel because in our last video we forged out this bracket, but I tried, where's my hand? I tried to bend that and upset it by hand to make a 90-degree angle. Please do not try and do that because the energy that goes into hitting this and upsetting it, it goes directly into your palm, and my hand was sore for an entire week. So that's why I ended up cutting a 90-degree piece of steel, because that was the only real safe way to do it, and it looked a lot better too. I'm going to start out forging the plates that we're going to screw to the timber because they're going to be the easiest ones to forge out. So I've got my two plates here. One is slightly longer than the other because it's got to hold the receiver end of the latch, and that's going to require us to bend a piece of 10mm square bar around, or what is 10mm? That's a 1/4 inch, I believe. Or is it 3/8? I can't remember. 3/8. So what we're going to do to each of these plates, we're going to, first I'm just going to knock down the edges a little bit with the bench grinder, and then we're going to forge the corners down to give it a really nice look, and then we're going to punch out each corner to receive some bolts that we're going to, or coach screws that we're going to screw into the wood. Initially I just planned to have a hole either side, but seeing as there's going to be a door coming in contact and knocking this around, I definitely thought 4 is a much better option to make it a lot more secure. My bench grinder, the button stopped working, so I need to use this little piece of steel and push it on the button and hold it on with my hip in order to get it to work. I really need to get this looked at, but I'm just too lazy at the moment. No, I'm too busy. I am in a race against time on this one because this is the very last of my coal, so I really got to try and be as efficient as I can. So I'm going to be heating both of the plates up at the same time and working them as each one cools, they'll start working on the other one. I'm just going to start out by knocking down these corners just to give it more of a hand forged look, obviously. And give it a bit of texture on the edges to really make it pop. I was wondering why my hand was getting tired. It's because I'm wearing my glove and I'm having to grip the hammer a lot harder. Let me just throw that away real quick. So now I'm going to use a center punch to punch out the locations of each hole I need to punch out. Now I don't want to go too close to the edge. I want to be about maybe that close. Well, that's both the plates forged out. Now we're going to move on to forging out this shank or doohickey, whatever you call it. I could do this part just on the grinder, but I thought, hey, we've got the forge hot, so we may as well just use this opportunity to make our grinding work a bit easier. So I'm just going to round over these edges on the top, because that is going to end up being rounded over like a bit of a shimmy circle. I'll take off the sharp edges. Now I'm going to put a twist in this, but I just realized I wanted to put some lines, some cuts into it just to make the twist pop a little bit more. So I'm just going to have to cool this off, put in those cuts, and then we'll do a twist. Oh, I bent this. I'm gonna chuck this back in, get it hot again. I'm gonna bend this back to shape, and then we're gonna try this again, because that's not as twisted as it's not as twisted as I want it to be. Pretty happy with that. Now, before we move on to cutting out the center portion of this, I want to forge out this, because I'm running out of coal and we need to get this hot enough to do some forge welding, just to give us a bit more material on the ends. Now, I made some marks with my center punch on here earlier. Hopefully I can find it again. There, so I found a point where I want to start a bit of an isolation. And fold this down to about half the length, or half the width of the material. And then I'm going to fold it over. Because I'm preparing for a forge weld, I'm really trying to keep as much forge scale off the material as I can. Fold it down to there. Give it another sweep. And I'm going to carry that all the way back down. So now we're here, I'm going to give it another sweep. I'm going to get some flux in there before I knock it all the way down. So now we're going to heat this back up. We're going to forge weld that. You want to get this really nice and hot. You can see those sparks flying out. And when you're setting the weld, you just want to do pretty light blows. Nice. So now you can see what we've got. So we've got kind of a hook part, and we've got to taper this down into a proper hook. And I'll probably thin the body of this hook just so that's more pronounced and it'll hook easier. I'd say we started that weld off pretty well because you can just barely see a seam in there. Can a little bit on this side. I think we did pretty well there. Solidify the weld. We're gonna give it some, oh no, come on! Let's see here. Probably lost too much heat. But to solidify the weld on your second heat during the welding process, you can give it a lot harder hits. The first part, you're mainly just setting it. If you hit too hard, it'll just come apart. But the second stage, you can give it some much bigger hits. But my goal now is I'm gonna have to hold this flat, forge this down at an angle without this pulling back. Just gotta hold my reins tighter, I think. Now I'm gonna hold it over, I might do it over this corner over here because it's a sharper edge of the anvil. And I'm going to hit down like that to bring this in a bit deeper so that latch isn't just gonna flail about and not latch properly. This edge is the sharpest part of my anvil. I'm using half on, half off blows to do this. And I'll just clean up that edge with a file, I think. Now for the other side, so that's the hook that's going to go into that latch. And for the other side, I'm going to have it so we're going to fold a piece over just so there's like a little lump, so you know that's where your foot goes, that's where your toe goes when you push it down, and it lever actions it up to unlock the door. And I'm going to just put in a preliminary mark, and this is going to help us index this into our hot cut tool, and we're going to chomp halfway through that, and then we're going to fold that piece around. There you go, because we chiseled it in. Now we can find it. I'm going to heat this back up before bending it because I don't want that to snap. Back around, another clean, put some flux in it while it's hot so the flux melts both sides, and set it in place. So now we're going to get that nice and hot, hopefully, because I'm almost out of coal, and we're going to set that, and that's going to be our little toe pedal. She's smoking. That's what we want. A light set of blows, and that is set. And that's that done. Nice. Where's my brush gone? Oh. And with the last bit of coal I've got left, I'm just gonna bend this. God, it's twisting. I'm just gonna do the rest of this on the anvil. And that is for the receiver end. You can see how much coal I've got left. Nothing. Okay, so that's all the forging work done. So we've got our little plates forged out, as you can see. Now one of these, I'm going to be welding on this shank, the twist. Then we're gonna clean this up a little bit, don't worry. But we're gonna have to cut a groove in here so it's a bit thinner, and we're gonna cut down in the center of this rounded part, and that's gonna slot inside And then what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to drill a hole through, and I'm just gonna put in a brass rivet. I'm not sure, is that auto-focusing? No? Okay, but we're gonna rivet that into place. So that's gonna be a pivot point, and it's gonna go like that. So we need to find where the weight's distributed properly, because we can't have it so this is too heavy and it just wants to sit up like that. We want it to always want to sit down. And then on our other plate, we're going to have our little thingamajig. And on this other plate, we're going to weld on the receiver part of the hinge. So and this is going to be part of the door. When the door opens up, hopefully this is going to hit right here, lift it up, and then it's going to drop into place. Now we'll do it a bit nicer after I clean it up, and obviously when we've got the rivet in, but that's the gist of it. So at this point, I'm going to clean everything up with a wire wheel, make sure everything's nice and straight. I might take a little bit more off this end, and then I'm gonna have to cut in some angles, some 45 grooves, not grooves, like chamfers on here, so when I weld it, there's room for the bead to embed deeper inside, and it's gonna be a much stronger weld. And I've already done the same, I've done that on here, as you can see. I've put a 45 chamfer on there, so once it's connected with the plate, there's a lot of space for the welding wire to embed itself and penetrate into the steel, making it a stronger weld. Because I think this part is going to take the most brunt of the force, especially if they're going to be slamming it. So I'm probably going to have to do a couple passes and do a pretty big bead on this, just to make sure, to future-proof it and make sure it's not just going to break off after a year. Now, before I go on to welding everything together, I'm just going to clean up these edges, make them nice and sharp, just so when it indexes into the receiver end, it doesn't want to pop out. And I'm also going to put in some little grooves in here, just some straight grooves with my angle grinder, just to give it a little bit of grip on the foot pedal. Not that it needs it, but I think it'll help the aesthetic a little bit. I'm just smoothing the hook part out so there's nothing to stop it from easily gliding on top of the receiver. I'm happy with that. And we are going to heat this back up to blacken it again, so it's not going to look shiny and dark in different spots. But that's definitely smooth enough that it shouldn't catch on anything. And I can also see there's a little bit of flux still stuck in there, so I'm going to get in there with the file too. Now I'm trying to find the pivot point. Where is the center of gravity? It's about there. Should probably go about 10 mils back. That's my point right there. So now I've got to do a bit of grinding work to fit this inside of here. can see there, I've gave it a bit of a rebate on either side. So now hopefully they're kind of, yeah, there we go. You can see how it's gonna look. And we're gonna cut that section out as tight as we can possibly. I don't want it to wobble back and forth, but also we don't want it too tight. Well, that was a bit more grinding and filing than I hoped for, but we have got it to a point where it's just tight enough where it's not really wobbling, maybe a tiny bit. Even if we gave it a little strike with a hammer, that would make it even tighter, but I really don't want it to stick. I want it to be loose, so I think I'm happy with that. And we're gonna have it so it's sitting right there. And I cut this actually at an angle. You can see where those lines are. Sorry, you can see where those lines are. It's actually cut at a slight angle. So when it's sitting at the front, it's resting on that front face, but it's got room in the back. I don't know how easy it is to see that. It's got room in the back for it to swivel down so it can lift up. It's gonna hit right there, it's gonna lift up and then latch. It's gonna hold the door shut, open. It's gonna hold the door open. I hope, we'll see. And my next step is I need to prepare for the swivel, which I'm gonna use this brass dowel. I think it's 4mm thick. So I need to find a 4mm hole bit, drill bit, and I'm gonna drill through all of these, both of these, all two of them, and get it prepared. I'm not gonna connect them together straight away because I'm still gonna heat them up. I want to blacken them. I don't want to have any shiny bits, and I'm going to put in my touch mark because I forgot to do that while I was forging. But anyway, let's drill the hole. I just stuffed some paper in there to stop this from wobbling around so much while I'm drilling the hole. Hopefully it helps. And I didn't actually find a 4mm drill bit. I found a 5/32. And I think that's a tiny bit bigger than a 4mm, so that's actually exactly what I want. Just doing a bit of a dry fit here, so it's working exactly how I want it to. I'm glad I gave it that extra 10mm to make sure that the weight was over this side, because there's a lot of mess in here, so it's a mistake I really was worried about making. But nah, she's working perfectly. And I'm also gonna countersink each side of the shank so it doesn't, so the rivet actually sits in there nicely. Doesn't have to be too deep. So there's our little latch. But I think I was looking at this. I think I'm just going to put in some little decorative elements in here just so it doesn't look so bland. Just something small, but it adds a little bit of flavor to it, a little bit of texture. We don't want anything too boring. So now I'm just heating everything back up and giving it one last sweep and blackening it from all the parts that I have ground down. Oop, there we go. And I'm just gonna set each piece aside while I clean it up. I did notice a very, very slight bow in this one. So just gonna straighten it up. Now I'm gonna do something special for these parts that are swiveling together. I'm going to dip them in oil just to coat the inside, because I don't think I'm going to be able to get a clear coat in there without it sticking. And then after that, I'm just going to wire wheel the rest, get it nice and shiny. We'll do a clear coat because that's what the client wants. while I let those cool down, I'm gonna heat up my fixings and I'm gonna get these all nice and into shape. I'm gonna use my bolster plate. I'll stick my bolts through and I'll knock down the writing, just like you saw. I'm guessing if you've seen this video, you've probably already seen Blackbeard Forge's video where he reshapes his bolt heads to make them look nicer. All I do is chuck it in my bolster plate. All those words, all the writing, just knock it all down. Got a nice texture. If I'm doing smaller bolt heads, then I'll use the cross peen. But I think the flat face is good enough. I forgot to put on my touch mark. It's not the end of the world, it doesn't really matter. I'm not gonna heat this back up and put a touch mark on there now because I need to hurry up and get this done, but we're gonna move on to welding. Well, it's your turn to be the judge of my welds. They may not look like a welder who's been doing it for 20 years, because I sure haven't, but they should be pretty strong. I'll put in this little triangle here. There's going to be a lot of pressure going on this when a door closes on it, so I want to have that extra bit of support. I am almost finished. Now it's just time to put on the clear coat. There we go. I just used one coat of this rust guard for this here. I am gonna do 3 coats in total because it's gonna be outdoors and I want to be really, not secure, but I want it to be really rust proof as much as I can. I know I said I wasn't gonna put any in where the swivel is, but I thought if just one single coat gets in there, it'll be fine. And then on my next 2 coats, I'm going to mask those areas off while I do the rest. And then I guess in my next shot, you're gonna see me, this is all gonna be finished, coated 3 times, and we're going to hammer in the little rivet. Okay, so it's the next day and I've got it all back together, and I've got this little pin, this brass pin in here, and now all I've got to do to finish this off is to use my rounding peen, or my round peen hammer, to properly rivet that into place. All done. And there you go. We've got our swiveling door latch. Here's what it'll look like with the bolts installed. I am going to give them a clear coat as well. They are stainless, so they're not going to stain, but I want to give them a clear coat so they match the finish of the rest of the body. So we've got that. We made this in this episode, and if you haven't watched my previous episode, that's the first part of our commission. It's all the same commission, but we made this. I didn't film, but we also made this. So I've made 2 of these, and that's what it's going to look like with the bolts. I've got some, I actually ended up drilling the holes bigger than I punched through because I needed to find some bolts. I was ideally looking for some smaller bolts, but I thought, hey, it'll probably look a lot better if I get some larger bolts just for the main body. So I'm going to have these larger bolts, and then I'm going to have these smaller bolts on the kuru pattern that we forged out, and I think that is going to look really, really good once I finish these bolt heads. So I guess there's just one last thing to do. and that's to install it. So let's go and do it. Or in about a week's time. That's what it's gonna feel like for me, but for you, it's gonna feel like this. All right, we are back on site. Now it is time to install this bracket, or these brackets, plural, and the door latch. So there we have it. There is our left-hand bracket for the stairs. And here's our right-hand bracket, our fleur-de-lis, our little kuru pattern. It's all bolted into place. And here's our little door latch. A nice little door latch. And if we open the door, it locks. What do you know? Here we go. I'll do a close-up of it, eh? Just trying to find my foot. I'm looking in the camera. Let me zoom out a little bit. Nice. Catches perfectly. So there we have it. Our little first commission job. I think it went pretty good.